Today is Friday, May 30th. We're talking about the latest court rulings over tariffs, international students, and environmental reviews, and how they could all impact President Trump's agenda. Also, the White House is having to fix some errors in the Make America Healthy Again report, plus where Americans are dealing with their first big heat snap of the year, what perks travelers will get from a new airline partnership, and how one 13-year-old pulled off a dramatic comeback at the National Spelling Bee. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The courts seem to be going back and forth on some of President Trump's biggest policies, sparking a lot of uncertainty around the country. For example, on tariffs, we told you yesterday a court declared many of them to be illegal, ruling that the Trump administration overstepped its power by imposing them. But then another court froze that ruling, so the U.S. can keep collecting tariffs for now, at least while the Trump administration's appeal plays out. And either way, Trump's trade advisor says, quote, "You can assume that even if we lose, we will do it another way." In fact, the president has threatened to expand his tariffs even more. Separately, another court blocked the Trump administration from banning international students from going to Harvard. But again, it's just a temporary block while the case is still being argued. The hearing actually happened at the same time as Harvard's graduation ceremony yesterday. And when the university president addressed graduates, he referenced it, saying he was happy to see students from around the world, quote, "just as it should be." To that, he got a standing ovation and roaring applause. Of course, these court fights are just the latest in a series for the Trump administration. Over the first 130 days of Trump's second term, courts have ruled against at least 180 of his actions. The White House has scolded what it calls activist judges, saying they're just anti-Trump and doing what they can to undermine him. But legal experts say the judiciary is doing its job as an important check of the president's power. Either way, expect many more legal battles ahead. The U.S. Supreme Court backed a multi-billion-dollar oil railroad expansion in Utah. But as is the case with many high court decisions, its impact is set to go much further. The justices unanimously ruled that the federal government had done enough to consider the environmental impact of the railway. And with that, they limited the scope of environmental reviews required in all sorts of settings, which could really help the Trump administration since the president has promised to boost oil and gas production. Justice Brett Kavanaugh explained for the court, saying the reviews had been used by political opponents to try to stop or at least slow down new infrastructure and construction projects, but that the law should be used to inform decision-making, not paralyze it. Environmental groups criticized the ruling, though, saying it will mean our air and water will be more polluted and people will be less healthy. But this decision is final. In Utah, the railroad expansion is still a ways away. Project leaders still need more approvals and have to secure funding before they can even break ground. To be continued. Immigration officials are facing new pressure from the White House to arrest more people. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem told them to ramp up arrests to at least 3,000 a day, triple what agents were arresting in the early days of the administration. In the face of the new quota, there's also a new leadership shakeup. Several reports cite sources who say 2 top officials have been ousted at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is not the first shakeup at ICE, since the director and deputy director were already reassigned earlier this year. And now sources say more leaders' jobs are still at risk. Meanwhile, the White House is also upping the pressure on so-called sanctuary cities and counties around the country. The Trump administration named them yesterday with a list that includes New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle. Remember, sanctuary jurisdictions are those that put limits on helping federal officials with immigration enforcement, making it harder for the Trump administration to arrest undocumented migrants. The president has threatened to pull funding and pursue lawsuits against places unless they change their practices. But after the list was released yesterday, more than 50 government leaders from sanctuary jurisdictions said they would keep fighting against Trump's immigration crackdown anyway. So stay tuned. Dozens of massive wildfires are now burning out of control in western and central Canada. States of emergency have been declared in the Canadian provinces of Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Thousands of people have been forced out of their homes. And with the weather forecast, things aren't likely to improve soon, even though the Canadian Armed Forces have been deployed to help out. Now the fires are also starting to send smoke toward the U.S. Today, it's expected to reach cities like Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Chicago. Air quality alerts are already in place for parts of Minnesota and Michigan, and the smoke could linger through the weekend. A pre-summer heat snap could bring record-breaking temperatures to parts of the western U.S. this weekend. Millions of Americans are under heat alerts now, stretching from the desert Southwest to the Pacific Northwest. The worst of the heat is going to be centered over California today, from the southern part of the state all the way up to Yosemite. Tomorrow, the extreme temps shift east. It could reach 106 degrees in Las Vegas, 100 degrees in Boise, Idaho, and in the 90s in Salt Lake City. But the warm-up should not last too long. Temperatures in California are expected to drop by Sunday and to the east by Monday. Of course, there are a lot more hot days ahead. Meteorological summer begins in just 2 days. More news still ahead, but first, this episode is sponsored by OneSkin. I love using OneSkin every single day. First of all, this is a company founded by an all-women team of scientists with PhDs in skin regeneration, stem cell biology, immunology, and bioinformatics. So they clearly know what they're doing. They developed the OS1 peptide. It works at the cellular level to improve key aging biomarkers while reducing the visible signs of aging too, including lines, wrinkles, and sagging skin. Because OneSkin believes the purpose of skincare is not just to improve how you look, but to also optimize your skin's biology. How cool is that? Besides, I love the feel and the effects so far of everything I've tried from OneSkin. So go get their cleanser, moisturizers, sunscreens, and even their new peptide scalp serum, because yes, scalp health is skin health. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using the code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support my show and tell them we sent you. Give your skin the scientifically proven, gentle care it deserves with OneSkin. Now back to the news. There are now just 2 teams still in the running for the oldest trophy in North American pro sports. We're talking about the Stanley Cup, the most coveted prize in hockey. And now we know the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers will face off in the Stanley Cup final starting next week. The Oilers advanced to the finals last night by defeating the Dallas Stars, just after the Panthers did the same by beating the Carolina Hurricanes. This means the finals will be a rematch since it was the Panthers versus Oilers last year, too. Now the Panthers are looking for a repeat, and the Oilers are hoping for a redo. Meanwhile, the NBA playoffs are down to its final 3 teams. The Oklahoma City Thunder punched their ticket to the finals for the first time since 2012, when they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves earlier this week. Then last night, the Indianapolis Pacers were just 1 win away from making it to the finals as well, but ended up losing to the New York Knicks. So now that series continues. And it will be either the Knicks or the Pacers facing off against the Thunder starting next week. It turns out the much-anticipated federal health report we told you about last week contained some errors. Remember, the Make America Healthy Again report questioned America's food supply, environmental toxins, prescription drugs, and more. It cited hundreds of studies, but a closer look found that some of the studies did not actually exist. For example, some about mental illnesses and medications for children with asthma. To be clear, the references don't necessarily mean the facts of the report are incorrect, but certain medical experts say they do undermine confidence in the seriousness of the report and the evidence base that conclusions are being drawn from. Some suggest the report may have relied on artificial intelligence, but the Trump administration would not say one way or another on that. When asked about the errors, the White House spokesperson characterized them as minor citation issues that will be fixed, but she said the substance of the report remains the same. All this comes as Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy has said he plans to tell federal researchers to stop publishing their work in independent peer-reviewed journals, calling them corrupt. Instead, he's calling on the National Institutes of Health to develop its own research journals. United Airlines and JetBlue have announced a new partnership. It lets passengers earn and spend frequent flyer miles between the 2 airlines, and elite frequent flyers will be able to get priority treatment across both airlines. United and JetBlue will also offer each other's flights for sale on their websites. The airlines say it's all about offering customers more choices. JetBlue will also give United slots at JFK Airport in New York City starting in 2027, and they'll swap some flight timings at Newark and more. The deal still needs to be approved by regulators, but airlines expect the partnership will be able to go into effect this fall. This week, the Scripps National Spelling Bee celebrated its 100th anniversary, and on its centennial, a 13-year-old from Texas was named champion. Faison Zaki was actually runner-up in last year's bee, and this year he beat out 243 other spellers to win it. It was close, though. Faison was nearly knocked out when he rushed to spell his word in the 18th round without a proper explanation and got it wrong. But the two other remaining competitors also missed their words, and they were all reinstated in a moment that drew gasps and applause from the audience. Then at the end of the night last night, the final word was éclaircissement, which means clearing out something obscure. Faison spelled it correctly without hesitation, then fell to the stage in joy as confetti rained down. With that, the 7th grader gets to take home a $50,000 grand prize. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a word from our sponsor. Whether my kiddo is in an eat-anything phase or buttered noodles only phase, I at least know Hiya's best-selling children's vitamins are helping to fill gaps in his diet and support his growing body and brain no matter what. I started giving him Hiya vitamins right when he turned 2, and now at 3.5 years old, he's still loving them as part of his morning routine. So much so that we've also added in Hiya's Kids Probiotic along the way. I love that Hiya is made with 0 sugar, tastes great, and that every batch is third-party tested for heavy metals, so I know they're safe and nutritious. And if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to Feel Good Friday. The owner of a California dry cleaner is helping out his customers when they're out of work. Ali Shukardai dry cleans and presses their clothes before job interviews for free. This is actually an ambition he's had for a while to infuse his business with acts of kindness, since he says philanthropy brings joy, not just to those who are getting, but those who are giving back. And it's not just about helping people look their best, though that is part of it. He also says he wants to give people hope that the community they live in cares about them, knowing that even the smallest act makes a big difference. He says he helps about 5 to 10 people a week. In fact, one woman who came into his shop had to have her shirt pressed for a job interview in less than an hour. And not only was he able to help her out, but he was there to celebrate with her when she got the job. As he explains it, he may have been even more excited than she was. And he's happy to know he's doing his part in making his community better. We'll be back tomorrow with a fun special edition Saturday episode about how and why to make summer reading a new favorite hobby and some book recommendations to help you get started. That'll be in your podcast feed tomorrow morning. Then join us again Monday for another Daily News Roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.